Cool, we can.
Yeah, man.
Sorry to eliminate the foreplay. I
Just
want to give you guys as much content as you can get.
For sure.
Is this thing going, Jeremy?
Yeah, we're good to go. And we got, are you guys good?
Yep.
Roll. Cool. Yeah, well, we're good, man. So, very simple. We'll run through it. Joe's going to do an intro.
Let's do it.
With questions, we'll go.
There you go.
Cool, so definitely excited to have Gary Vee here for, what is this, the 34th?
34th episode.
34th episode of the Sales Influencer Series. Want to kick it off. I think probably 99% of the people that listen to this series know who you are.
Okay.
Definitely pumped that we actually landed you somehow. But if you don't mind, give us the quick and dirty on you. That way for that 1% they know who you are.
So I'm an entrepreneur. I was born in the Soviet Union, came to the US in '78. Born and bred entrepreneur, right? Lemonade stands, baseball cards, washing cars, shoveling snow. Made my first buck really selling baseball cards when I was 12 or 13. It was a big phenomenon for everybody who grew up in that 87, 88, 89, 90, 91 era. And then my dad is very much my hero, saved all his dollars and built a real formidable liquor store in New Jersey called Shoppers Discount Liquors, and I joined it when I was 14, and over the course of a 5 to 7 year window, depending on how officially you want to go with it. But basically from 1998 to 2005, my dad and I grew that business from a $4 to a $60 million business. And that kind of was my name, right? The AP, Wall Street Journal, I was this wine guy. I built one of the large, interesting, independent wine retailers in America. Wine Library, winelibrary.com was pioneer. And I did that on the back of email, Google AdWords, banner ads, and then ultimately YouTube. When it first came out, YouTube sells. I realized, holy crap, I've got something in me that I'm not taking advantage of, and so then I started investing. And I invested in Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook out the gate, which, as you can imagine, put me on the map in the venture capital angel investment world as social media became a thing. I wrote a book called Crush It about my belief that influencer marketing was going to get big and everybody could make some money. And as you can imagine, that's really played out in a big way. So that was good, and that went very viral. And that led to me writing 4 consecutive New York Times bestselling books. And then my brother AJ is 11 years younger than me, graduated BU in 2009, and we started Vaynermedia, which is a social, digital, full-service agency, creative, video production, paid media, consulting, the gamut. And now we're a very large organization. 7 years later, we're 700 plus people, 4 offices, New York, LA, London, and Chattanooga, Tennessee, where we are right now. And you know, it's a $130 million plus revenue business that we built from scratch, which we're proud of. And you know, more recently, I've really hit a very viral moment in my career. I've been pumping out content for a decade, but for context, and I don't believe that following growth means everything or anything, but I do think it grounds something interesting to me, which is all the content, all the things I've done led to me having 500,000 Instagram followers in December of 16, and as of this taping, we're now, May 1st, 17, so 5 months or so, I've gone from 500,000 to 1.7 million followers on that platform. And I think what's happening through my daily vlog, Daily V, through the content on Instagram, through my overall strategy of content and distribution, podcasting being one of them, I think there's always those moments when you're in your prime, right? You know, I think of athletes, right? There's just always those moments. You think about all the players that some of us are all sitting here thinking about, or actors and actresses, like Tom Hanks when he was back-to-back Academy Award nominated. That's his prime. Like, those were the movies. I feel like in some weird way, I'm no question entering the prime of my career, and I think that's what I'm tasting, to be honest. And that's as a communicator, that's as an operator. I take a lot of pride that I'm one of the few, I believe that I'm one of the few motivational characters who's also an operator that actually builds businesses, and I'm not in the business of Gary Vee. I think a lot of my friends who are podcasters or keynoters or online course sellers are always I always razz them because I remind them that Gary Vee is my side hustle. That, you know, what I spend 95% of my energy on is being the CEO of a very large company, and that always kind of gets them mad. but I think I've figured out a way of producing content and distributing it that's unique. And so it's a very long-winded answer for the 1%.
The 1% are very well informed. That's fantastic. I mean, there's months of content out there, and we're big consumers of it. And the focus of this is just a few questions.
Please.
But, focusing on millennials at work. It's the largest workforce demographic. We'll run through a few questions, but one and a big part of it, I think that everybody loves is you speak the truth. Like you tell it how it is. I think that's a needed voice, and that's why obviously we love listening to you. But one thing that I absolutely love.
And real quick, and I think this will be valuable for the audience. I think a lot of people speak the truth. I think there's not a lot of people who are hardcore operators who speak the truth. I think there's a lot of voices out there who are speaking the truth. They just don't have the experience. Like, I'm grossly underrated because of my own narrative, and meaning the way I narrate myself. I'm a doer. Like, I'm in meetings. I just walked from a company, an office-wide meeting, and 7 meetings with employees. Like, I'm doing.
Right.
And I think, I notice, like, I'm not as sharp. Like, for example, I'm not buying wine right now. I can talk about buying and selling product because I did it every day of my life for 15 years. Am I as sharp at talking about buying and selling products as I was 6 years ago? No, because I'm not actively doing it.
Right.
And so I think that one thing that everybody who's listening should think about is really audit who you're paying attention to. I think people think I tell it like it is because I curse and do it aggressively, and I think it gives a narrative of that. But I think a lot of people do that are completely full of shit. I think what is resonating with people is I've got answers. Like, the reason I do Q&A all the time is because I know the answer, because I'm doing it. And I think that's super interesting, and I think more of us, like millennials in the workforce, so for one example, I'm a huge millennial advocate because I hate the narratives that are painted on millennials. Like, I know unlimited millennials that want to make lots of money and work their asses off.
Right.
What I think millennials, so that's where old people are wrong about millennials, but where millennials are wrong is experience matters. When I was a millennial, AKA when I was in my 20s, I was ridiculously talented. I went on to become a very successful businessman. I was right about my bravado. Here's the problem. 41-year-old Gary thrashes 24-year-old Gary. 17 years of experience is real. So old people, me, 40-year-olds and above, need to stop talking shit about millennials, but millennials need to start putting value on experience, because the smartest millennials that are walking into my room telling me how to run my business with zero context of ever doing it is laughable at best and obnoxious at worst.
Patience and perseverance is what you always advocate for millennials.
And for everybody, even for 41-year-olds, right? I think I live and eat patience.
Yeah.
I've got everything in front of me. I can cash it in right now. Like, I can take $100 million off the table right now. And if you think about what $100 million is, right? Like what $57 million in post-tax money is, that's generational wealth, right? That is like, I will never spend it all. I'll probably, just by investing it into Facebook, and Netflix and Amazon or the market, taking $25 million, putting in the market, never thinking about it again, as long as America doesn't melt, I am like, I'll have 100 million when I'm 70. Like, I'm set. But I want to buy the New York Jets. I want to have an all-time legacy. So I practice patience. Patience is a mapping to your ambition. If your ambition is to live on, $1,000 a year in Peru, well, you can quit right now. You don't need to be patient. Like, cash in all your chips and move, right? So I think patience is a complete correlation to your ambition.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what we want to get to now, you're going to your operator side of things. So we want to talk about leading millennial sales force, and VaynerMedia has a legendary work culture inside of it. You've built that. Talk to people first about one thing you've talked about is playing Moneyball, being day-driven, but also having EQ on top of that. So how do you, when you're leading a team and building a team internally, mix those two things together and be day-driven, have a day-driven culture, be results-oriented, but also have passion and have a culture of teamwork and that sort of thing?
It's a great question. Look, I think it's a balance, right? So for example, sales is fun for me, right? So if your best saleswoman is the worst human being on earth, she has to be fired. And most sales organizations don't do that. The end. Mm-hmm. There's a very black and white example. If you're listening right now, and you're a salesperson as a millennial in an organization, you need to go to your boss. You should here's a great litmus test. Email your CEO. say, Susan, I'd like to meet with you for 5 minutes. If Susan sends you to HR and has no time for you, that's important to know. By the way, it doesn't mean Susan's wrong. I really want everybody to hear that. It just means that's how Susan sees the world. And that's okay too. But, that's interesting. And then you go to Susan, she gives you the time of day and goes, Susan, Rick, who I know is the #1 earner on this team, he may be earning the most, but the other 31 of us are not earning as much as we can because we spend 2 hours a day complaining about how rude Rick is, how sexist Rick is, how inappropriate Rick is, how mean Rick is. I just don't understand how you can eliminate life from the numbers.
Right.
Right? Like, we see it, sports is such an amazing parallel to life. Like, there's a reason that super team that the Eagles put together didn't win, right? They didn't work together, right? They didn't work together. Like, there's a reason, like, I would try to lock up all 5 of my offensive linemen for, like, 5-year contracts at a time and draft and trade and free agent the same way, because continuity on an offensive line is imperative, right? So, like, that's how I think about it. Like Mickey, who runs the office here, like, he's a good human being. It starts with that. And, like, you have to start there because the skills can be taught. Now, sales is a natural thing. Do I think sales is a natural talent? I do. Do I think you can get better? I do. But I also think I can get better in basketball, and I'm not going to be LeBron, right? Like, I think everybody can get better at sales, but, like, me on my worst day of my life, my mother dies, will still outsell 95% of people because I'm just a better salesperson, right? So, like, I think you've got to balance the two because that's truth. That's reality. Like, if it was just math, well, then everybody would win all the time. There's a reason people that overvalue the numbers lose. It's because they go too far.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and it goes both ways. Like, Billy Beane was right, and he knows that, like, Eric Chavez is going to hit the ball into gaps that are more mathematically going to work in their favor for a good baseball team, and that's why they did well. And that's a very important thing. The problem is, if Eric Chavez, and this is not the case, but if Eric Chavez was bad in the locker room, it kills the data.
Yeah, absolutely. You just have a team that looks good on paper, and then comes out and plays like the Eagles did.
It's just because the personalities matter.
And the coach owns the culture too. The leader can own the culture.
The owner owns the culture. The coach doesn't. Our coach for the Jets, Todd Bowles, knows he has 3 players. I'm not going to put them on blast, but because I just know it's true. Has 3 players that are downright cancer, and they're trying to address it this offseason. But, like, he wanted to address it last year, but off the good year they had the year before, the owner wasn't going to let him cut all pro caliber players or kids that were drafted in the first round. The owner. So when you say the coach, right? It's a good analogy, but I think it's the owner, AKA it's not the head of sales.
Right.
If you're listening right now and you're mad at John, the head of sales, it's not his fault. It's Karen's fault. She's the CEO. He's pandering to Karen's. And if Karen's letting the CFO, Carl, make the decisions because it's all about numbers, it's Karen's fault again.
That's right. That's why Jerry Jones owns Cowboys culture. Jason Garrett's not the one doing that. Makes perfect sense.
Speaking of culture, I think it's a good kind of segue into the next question. There was like some debate between the Cardone, cease and desist thing, and like more of a modern Gary Vee approach.
that one.
And I think some of that was misunderstood, but I see both.
I don't think it was misunderstood.
Well, I think there's 2 different lines. So you have like old school selling and new school selling, I guess.
And I love the whole like sell until they bleed, but I also just don't think it's as good of a sales tactic. I think it's short-term sales, right? Listen, I think anything can work. I think anything can work. I think there's a lot of ways to win. There's the hardcore Bill Parcells, like we're just going sports now today. Like, let's just, there's the hardcore discipline, X's O, Tom Coughlin, nobody liked him. I know that team, the Giants teams, they didn't like him, and it worked. And then there's also the Pete Carroll, like it's motivation, Jim Harbaugh, it's motivational, it's rah-rah, and that works. Like clearly in life, everything has worked, right? Steve Jobs worked. That's not my style. I don't want to berate my people into their best work. I want to inspire them into their best work. So everything works. I would just say that, I think what, tripped me up in that exchange at Grant's Place was like, it felt like it was pushing even like fraud.
Sure.
Like lying is not a good sales tactic. And by the way, I come from a lying background. I'm being dead serious. when I was 13, 14, 15, people would come into the liquor store and I would make pretend, aka lie, that I had tasted that wine, or I would do whatever it took to sell. My dad saved my ass. My dad has zero tolerance for embellishment, let alone lying. And he suffocated and stripped out of me. This is where nature and nurture, right? My nature was, I think the reason I am who I am is because I was born to be the biggest showman bullshit of all time. Born to be it. And my father, I give my mother so much credit, my father sucked it out of me at an early enough stage that it became my truth. And so I have the pizzazz and ability to get you, but then I deliver on something more noble than, and that's why I think a lot of people viscerally when they first see me are like, right? Because I have it. And then it takes time to be like, oh, wait a minute, right?
Well, your point that I thought was so good was two things. One, having empathy. It was having empathy for your prospect, actually trying to add value versus clearly not caring about them, which probably not a great tactic nowadays. So it's a cultural thing. I feel like that's something you want to build. It's having actual caring about who you're serving.
Empathy is the greatest pillar of sales.
It's number one, right?
It's number one.
Understand your prospect.
100%.
A lot of our clients are like, middle America, big established companies, and it's not a lot of fun to go and be an SDR and make $150,000 a day. What tidbits of information would you give to the leaders of those teams and like connecting with those millennial sellers? First job out of college.
Yeah.
What do you do to
map them one by one? You just don't know. I don't want to give general advice because general advice won't work. You just need to know Susan and Karen and Rick and Charlie's ROI. EQ. And then work. And then like hardcore work. Like what are they about? Like what do they want? Like not everybody's ambitious. Not everybody is materialistic. Some are very ambitious. Some are extremely materialistic. Some love coffee. Like maybe when they crush it, you buy them a coffee maker. I think one-on-one marketing works, and I think it works even better when you run an organization because you don't have that many employees. Like it doesn't take that much time when you have 27 salespeople to have 27 lunches. Yet that seems so daunting to so many managers, and I laugh. I do that in 9 days. It'd be a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Done.
Yes, you're saying having a higher EQ towards your employees is very important right now than teaching them to have a higher EQ towards their
Here's where people are not smart. One would argue if they're listening to me, be like, yeah, Gary, but my turnover is every 6 months to 9 months, and it's not worth the ROI. What they don't realize is when Patrick likes you because you were nice and you cared and you listened, and he goes and works for another company, or his brother from his fraternity hits him up on LinkedIn and says, what should I do? He says, you should go work for John. Mm-hmm. He was a great mentor for 9 months. Like people don't get it. Yeah. People sell in the micro. The whole game's macro.
Absolutely. Customers too, right?
Like I'm nice because it's practical and smart. Like if you win behind what people say about you. You guys don't know me. Now this is going to be it. This is going to be your data point. What are you going to say? And be like, it was nice. He walked in, shook everybody's hand. I'm not shaking hand for shtick. I'm shaking hand because I like it. Like it's just always who I've been. Like I think people feel it when it's shtick. I feel it when it's shtick. And I just want to say hi. Like what the fuck? Like why not? Right? So like I think that too many people think there's a blueprint. I'll tell you. I think actually I'm glad I just went through this little scenario. If you're a son of a bitch and you don't want to say hi, but you're an assassin, I'd actually go all in on that. Like, trying to be like me is not going to help it because they're going to taste that you don't care. So if you don't care more. I'm actually being very blunt and honest here. I do believe on tripling down on your strengths. So you are going to be an unemotional drill sergeant. Your mother didn't love you, right? And so you're cold. It's awesome. Like, it sucks, but like, it's who you are. And listen, there's some real advantages. Right? Yeah. For example, it took me 20 years of my career to get decent at giving critical feedback. I'm still not there. Maybe you're a cold-blooded son of a bitch and you give great critical feedback. And for a lot of people, that's the greatest ROI. I don't think I did well by a lot of people in early Wine Library and even probably early VaynerMedia. I got better. I knew I wanted to be better at it. My brother's good at it, so that helped me. But like, I think you have to understand what you're trying to achieve. And if you believe that the feedback you're giving is right, and you believe you're bringing them, if there's a big difference between a person that's just mean because they're poison inside, and they want you to feel bad too, versus the person who genuinely believes by giving it to you straight and the cold medicine, you'll get better.
Yep.
So for me, I genuinely believe, so a lot of people say, well, you make it too cushy and too easy, but I genuinely believe in my thesis. And I'm also willing to adjust, right? Like I do a reorg 3 weeks ago, and we fire 60 people. People think I've changed. I haven't changed. I've always told you what I'm up to. You're just looking at it at surface level.
Absolutely.
Other side of the coin, kind of building on that. So one thing I love about you is you talk about, you know, having one at bat. You get one life. Like make it real. A lot of people, you know, coming out of school, going to their first job, like, you know, another quote you have is like people want to be, you know, promoted immediately. People want to move too fast. Like, what advice do you have to them, the millennial seller coming into the seat, to go out and kill it? Like, you obviously aren't going to be handed anything. What do you tell that person new in the job?
I want to have the real talk, right? Which is like, look, when people razz on you guys, they're wrong, right? They're wrong. When they're like, you're just a kid, millennial, blah, blah, they're wrong. But you're also wrong if you, and not just millennials, anybody, if you expect anything. Like, nobody gives a fuck that you were the captain of your lacrosse team. The fuck does that have to do with anything?
Right.
Like, you're at zero. Like, you're literally at zero. You're 22 years old and you're at zero. Listen, if you work for a winner, they don't care about your degree, your history, your mama's pedigree. They just don't. Right? Like, people tell me, like, oh, this. I'm like, dude, that would mean every #1 pick in every single draft went on to become the best player of all time. I'm like, cool. I'm very glad that you were the head of your sorority, Susan, and that you've got real leadership skills. Mazel tov. Now go fucking sell a couple things. Show me. Like, so I think everybody's kind of right and everybody's kind of wrong, and this goes back to empathy. Understand why Sal at 47, who's seen the world of sales for last 20 plus years, thinks you're a little naive. And the great news is, if you're not, and you can sell more through Twitter while you're sipping pina coladas at Coachella, the best part about sales is, unlike a lot of other crafts, it's just black and white.
Yep.
So my advice for the kids, since you positioned it that way, is shut your fucking mouth and execute for 18 months and then stick it to everybody. That's what I did. I want to remind all the kids, I didn't say a fucking word to the world for the first fucking 10 years of my life.
You gotta do it first.
Put my head down, I built a liquor store. Then I came out and said, I built this business. That's a lot more fun. I have no interest in what you're gonna do. Everybody's gonna do. Every person I've ever met told me they're gonna.
That's kind of I know we're tight on time, but that's kind of a fantastic close, I think. But I think Jeremy had one specific question for you.
Yeah, man. I'm very interested in asking about 2 things. Number 1, can you give just a quick 1-letter draft grade for the New York Jets?
F.
F, really?
Yes.
Didn't like all the SEC players the first 3 rounds.
This is the greatest safety draft of all time. Of all time. It is the deepest and best safety draft by everybody's point of view of all time. The Jets go out and spend their first 2 picks on safeties. There's zero chance, there's 0.1% chance that those 2 safeties are going to play out as the 2 of the 4 best safeties of this draft. Number 2, the NFL has become a fully offensive league. It's all about offense. And we went out and drafted defense, after being defensive heavy, after drafting 9 straight years of first-round defensive players, which is the longest streak in modern football history. So during the great boom of offense, we've decided to draft with the first choice in the first round 9 consecutive defensive players. Basically, the New York Jets are like the advertising agencies that I make fun of. Like right now, they're tripling down on television commercials, right? So that's bad. Next, I love Jamal Adams as a player. He looks like a real player. I believe that there's an 80% chance he'll be better than Malik Hooker. Here's the problem. Malik Hooker, if he's great, is Ed Reed and Troy Polamalu. He's a game-breaking player. I just hate it. I hate everything they did.
Well, silver lining, you're not a Bears fan at least, right?
Yeah, but I love what the Bears did.
Really?
Sure. I would rather draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds until you have Bobby Glennon is not going to Bobby Glennon. That's all. What's his first name again? Mike Glennon. Bobby Glennon. Big shout out to you. Vaynermedia employee for the last 6 years. Mike Glennon is. By the way, I actually really like Mike Glennon. I wanted the Jets to get him until you guys grossly overpaid for him. But it's highly likely outside of like a Trent Dilfer. Like, by the way, Mike Glennon probably would have won a Super Bowl for the 09-10 Jets. That's how good their defense and running game and everything was besides the Sanchez part. So it happens. I saw it. We went to back-to-back AFC Championship games, and everybody thought I was crazy of how much I disliked Sanchez, but I watched every snap. I know what I'm talking about, right? It's like a sales team. If a company's rocking it, everybody thinks all the salespeople are good, but they're not. Like, B.J. Armstrong sucks. Like, Horace Grant is grossly overrated, and Scottie Pippen is the all-time most overrated player of all time. Of all time.
Interesting.
100%. Because that's what happens. Just what happens. So, anyway, yeah. Not good.
Fair enough. Thank you. Awesome answer, man. And so, final question is Vayner Beta. Let's talk about that. Vayner Beta. Yeah, I love the concept. Can you explain to people what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're getting... Vayner Beta is just cleaning up something I've been doing stupidly, which is, I don't know, Vaynermedia gets 100 to 500 emails a week from small businesses that want to work with us, and we just keep saying no. And so after a while, I'm like, that's probably not a smart strategy. So Vayner Beta is us going back to kind of our roots and having a product that's $25,000 a month in fees to Vaynermedia, which means that you also probably need another $10,000 or so in ad fees per month. So call it a $35,000 a month product that small businesses can sign up with us. And when I say small businesses, I mean by the world's definition of a small business, right? You probably have to do 4, 5, 6 million in revenue to begin to even consider working with us. But I'm really excited about it. We finally figured out, I think we have a real concept and strategy around creative output and paid advertising amplification to make a 6-store, car wash franchise work with us. Or back to your guys' world, I think we can crush it for SaaS products, right? If you're a SaaS business doing some real business, we can make one video that will help all your salespeople close far greater, far more often, doing the brand part on top of the paid part. So very excited about Vayner Beta. And we also launched something called 4Ds. Zappos and Disney do these tours and do these classes inside their companies and charge for it. So now we have a $10,000 consulting for the day. You come in for 10 hours, you meet all our disciplines. I come in occasionally and give a keynote. We bring other fancy people. So we're trying to find ways, for the first 4 or 5 classes, lost their mind on the value for $10,000. So that means we're onto something. So, and it's tough, right? I was like, is $10,000 worth it? For one day, But we're trying to hack and find services that can feed the people that want to get more of what I do without being Toyota or Chase or Budweiser and paying $2 million a year.
Absolutely. Awesome service, man. Well, we're thrilled. This has been great, Joe. I'll let you
No, this has been fantastic. Thank you for coming down.
Thanks for having me,
It's good to see you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Gary. You the man.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. All right, Nick.
All right.
I love it. Because if Mitch is real...
You guys going to slide?
If he is, hey.
If he's real, he's real.
It's a franchise quarterback.